Welcome to Unscripted Gaming. My name is Josh, joined as ever by my frozen co-host Ray, and definitely vibing out on music he could absolutely hear, Mike. Gentlemen, how are we?
Hello. The same, I guess.
I mean,
Generally positive, maybe a bit.
I mean, I'm doing great. So, how about you, Felix? He's doing great. He just looked at me. How about yourself, Josh?
Not too bad. I can't complain. Happy to be back after a little absence, but you know, it's it's happening.
Guys, if you don't mind, I want to jump right on into the BS.
Let's go for it.
All right, let's go. Let's do this. Let's talk about 6 days in Fallujah. Let's just not even bury the lead.
Oh.
Let's just punch this pig right here, right now.
Okay.
Here we go.
Here we go. Okay.
So this game,
as the late Bill O'Reilly would say, fuck it, let's do it live.
Absolutely. This game being developed by some guy.
The other one died, Josh. It was the other one.
The other one. Originally it was going to come out in like 2000. I want to say 2011 or something like that.
Yeah,
it was a long time ago.
It was quite a while ago. Not far removed from the actual battle itself.
It's pretty far removed.
Controversial, if you will.
Well, okay, so you're right, not far removed. I thought you meant like in timeline-wise, but if you're talking like the game's premise is to use the real-life names of Marines and in the event and their unit numbers and their actual place where it took place in a real-life battle of Fallujah, which is a very controversial battle because apparently the U.S. admitted to using white phosphorus, which is a war crime. And has been a war crime for, even at the time when it happened, probably 20 years plus after then. And the game got canceled, delayed, put on the back burner because the parents of the people that, of the soldiers, well, Marines that were being represented, threw up a backlash saying, hey, this is really, really insensitive, that you should not just make a video game off these people's names and this combat. Like, it's one thing to make a video game, let's say, off the landing of D-Day on Omaha Beach. I think we've all played at least one video game based off of that. Like, Medal of Honor Allied Assault, I do believe, is very popular for doing that. But by that time that game was made, that was like 50, 70 years after the fact or something like that. This was like, what, 2005? And the game was being made in 2011. I think it's a little raw. It's a little new. Especially since World War II had a definitive end to it. Like, there's peace treaties and everything about this. Like, hey, Michael, we're still in Iraq. It's 2021, and we are still in Iraq. There are still uniformed combat soldiers there to this day. So this game has come back. And the lead developer shot off their mouth and said, we are trying to be apolitical about this real-life combat engagement war crime, thank you, in Fallujah. Gentlemen, I don't talk a lot about my former military service on this podcast, but I was actually in Fallujah from 2007 to 2008. I would like to think that if someone made a video game about the 1 year I spent there, they're as political as fuck about it. As a matter of fact, you have my full permission after I pass away to make the most political ass game about Iraq as possible if you guys find your druthers to do it. By all means. Anyways, I want to hear Mike's opinion about, specifically Mike, about about this particular game.
So I guess I've got a couple of things here. One, I think it is very funny that this game, that this Peter Tomte, I think he's
let's go with that.
The head of the publisher Victura, who's publishing the game, has said that the government has not really been involved in the making of this project. This is not really true.
Did y'all smell that? Smells like bullshit.
Yeah. Lots of people are connected to, like, he talked with like Marine officers who and took input from them about the making of the game. And then further back, a lot of the same people who are making this, have connections to building software and working with the government, the military, and not even excluding the CIA. So, just to get that out of the bat here, these are things that are like, there is a GameSpot article about this stuff. So this is not exactly hard to dig up, hard to find stuff.
It doesn't take a lot of sleuthing to get to the bottom of some of this.
It's like a lot of this was dug up by Twitter user Axel_Hext. If you want to go look up his thread about it, I want to give credit to them because they did put all the links together in a nice place. So there's definitely, it's all there. It's not a big secret or anything. It's just, again, like reading the freaking Steam description for this thing, where it's like, here are the stories about the Marines, soldiers, and other fighters in this harrowing tale. And it's like I just I'm sorry to be crass, but I think the really frustrating thing about this project is that when they say things like, we're not interested in portraying the crimes that were committed, we're not, we don't, like, we are, this, and this isn't a political game. This is just about, like, it's kind of staggering. Like, I don't know if this person is, like, doesn't know what they're doing and that what they're saying is not possible, or if they're like just kind of a patsy for people who want to, massage this kind of message into what people think about what happened, about the war in general. And it's just kind of wild. Like, it's the, like, I guess, just to not rant forever, I promise. But like, apolitical is it. It's not a real position. Like, you can say you are, like, apolitical doesn't mean, wow, there are bad guys on both sides. Like, that's not what that really means. And a game that looks at, like, Iraq and then says, wow, this is hard. This is such a bad, messed up situation, but doesn't propose the alternative of an anti-imperialist agenda, then it is ultimately just like, either wittingly or unwittingly, it is just serving to like launder the reputation of, like, empire. Like, there's different ways you sell those things. There's like the Team America fuck yeah angle, and then like the oh, we have a burden to do this. Like, oh, we feel so bad about this awful thing that happened. I mean, but it had to happen. You understand that, right? I mean, but we feel bad about it, and that's the important thing. Like there's no, like, they trap you in that, like, duality, and there's no, games, projects like 6 Days in Fallujah, like, help play a very important role in that whole spin, and create a world where there's no alternative, like, beyond that. And it's, quite frankly, it's grosser than this is almost grosser than, like, your rah fuck yeah America stuff. Like, there's really it just makes me really mad, and I hope this game sucks. Does bad and is bad. The end.
Yeah, it screams of somebody who wants this particular conflict and this particular American involvement to be remembered in the same way of, the Great Liberation of Europe. It's trying to force this, like, grandiose memory on something that just doesn't deserve it in the slightest. And it just, there are ways to tell the stories of this whole experience and this whole fucked up conflict in a different way. There's a way to tell the story of the American soldier and the, you know, the fucked up things that they had to deal with, and not through the lens of, you know, oh, we're just gonna say, oh, these guys had to go in and spend 6 days in this city liberating it, and we're not gonna talk about the bad stuff that they did. Like, there are legitimate stories that can be told and should be heard about this time period. But A, I don't think a video game is the right medium for any of those stories, really. And B, trying to take an apolitical stance about something that is entirely political, just it doesn't work.
It's just
the war in Iraq is nothing but political, and the things that happened there were nothing but political.
This is a hot take because I saw this from some Facebook and Twitter posts where they're like, well, if they just make a tactical shooter, it could be apolitical like Counter-Strike. And to that I say, every military game ever is political. The military is an arm of policy. If you don't know that, you don't understand how governments work. Like they didn't just appear in Iraq.
Like when someone says something like war is, like a war game is apolitical, or like I saw some, like this guy was floating takes like war is apolitical. It's like, what do you think war is? But like the culmination of politics. What do you think it is? Is it like us? It's like, oh, it's raining. Tomorrow it's gonna be sunny. On Friday it's gonna be war. Like, do you think that's how that works? Like, what a
90% chance of war going on Thursday.
I wish I could be as dumb as someone who thinks that, because then that means they're too stupid to actually be depressed and have super fucked up thoughts about how bad things actually are.
If you go out, don't forget to bring your iron umbrella. There might be a war out there today.
I'm like Cypher. I'm just like, give me the blue pill again. Oh my God, please let me have it. You motherfuckers, give it to me. You don't know how good you have it.
This steak isn't real, but I want it to be real, and thus it tastes delicious. That sort of thing. The Matrix is a great movie.
It's a great film.
What
a lovely movie.
Yeah, 6 Days in Fallujah is definitely one of those things I never thought we'd hear from again. And yet here we are.
I think it was better that it stayed on the shelf, because all this is doing is, one, is bringing out a lot of bad actors, and I think that was kind of the intent. The bad actors to say, like, I want to actually play this game because it's going to it's going to trigger the libs. One, the type of people that you think are going to be triggered by this game just simply aren't going to play it. So you're not triggering anybody. You're just giving your money to this company. It's fine. That's whatever. That's its own thing. Two, the market is burdened with tactical shooters, especially ones based on like Desert War. Like, what's that game? Squad is out right now. Go play it. It's like $30-$20. You want a World War II version of that? Go play Postscriptum.
Like me, the cancel culture veteran. Finally, a conservative military video game. Yes, finally.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do.
Get these liberals out of my goddamn war games.
We see you. While Mike is injecting himself with atropine, we see what these people are trying to do, to try to say we still want to sell this game, but we understand that it's a very dirty message like across this game. There's a lot to talk about. We just don't want to talk about it. We just want
there is a kind of dark respect I have for being like, we have this thing. It's like kind of works. What if we just like send someone out there to go on Twitter and get the braying hogs all mad about the thing, and then be like, "Ooh, we're being apolitical," but like a Pied Piper situation, like leading all of like the Twitter hate mob, like justified hate mob, I would say in this case. I'm
Yeah.
a member of the hate mob. It's me. I'm hate mob.
So
And then be like, oh look, we're gonna save the most dumbass thing for us to say on the same day the game goes live, and then like all the hoot nanny about it, just boom, top 5 Steam.
Hoot. Well, so I want to actually combat that a little bit, Mike. So historically, games that have a lot of controversy around them and justified controversy never sell well. Like, okay, I'm gonna grab
That's
my
true.
hand.
They have to convert posting into purchasing.
Yeah. Remember that game Hatred, the game where you play as like a
that's right.
Yeah, that game sold like shit. Because as it turns out, the same people that are like, yeah, we want to play this game. That's like 12 people. the rest,
I own a copy of Hatred.
Society, what's that?
I own a copy of Hatred.
I know you do.
Because I may or may not have gotten featured on a local news channel talking
That's
about
right, your
Hatred.
local news hit. I forgot about that.
Wait, what?
Sick.
A mutual friend of ours, Ray, happens to work for a local news channel, and he reached out to me when like that game first launched. He's like, hey, can we like buy you this game and like record you playing and talking about it a little bit? And I said sure. So I went down and I recorded a segment talking about the game.
I remember.
Is there like a Josh, like, do they give you like the local news name card? Because if so, I don't know why that's not your profile picture, and why it shouldn't be for the rest of time. I know you have children that you.
I
want
should
to
reach
feature in
out
your
to
social
that.
media,
I should reach out to that friend and see if there's any way that he could get me that clip. It's probably been long enough that there's no archive of it. But like, what if there is?
This was. I remember this now. This was 4.5 years ago in like August of 2016. And I want to personally like congratulate Josh for showing the restraint to not bring this up every waking hour of the day. Because that seems out of character for you.
Do you guys remember when I was a local video game correspondent on the news?
When was the last time you plebs were on TV? That's what I thought. Now, if you don't mind, fame waits.
See that now he's going to be hitting on like the public access Friday night show. And it's like, well,
so
my thoughts on expanding the greenery on 5th Street. Well, there's a little game I like to call Super Metroid that explains all of this, my friend. Bear with me. We'll be right back.
You guys remember the game Spec Ops: The Line?
Yeah.
Yeah, that game is super political, and I think it's going to. And it didn't sell well. It sold actually extremely poorly. But that's the point I'm trying to say. Like most military games, unless your name is like Call of Duty or Battlefield, it's already a bit of a hard sell, because most people don't want to play modern warfare games unless you are either the big names or you got something interesting to say. And even if you have something interesting to say, it better be really interesting.
Yeah, war is sad. Sad face emoticon does not count as interesting in 2021. I'm sorry. It's just.
Yeah,
it's
I
crap.
mean, Spec Ops: The Line had something interesting to say. What, 8-10 years ago? But like today, that message doesn't. It's not really.
Yeah.
You have to go a little deeper than that.
Yeah, it was years ago.
Spec Ops: The Line is a game that like
uses
the one I think of. The one thing I distinctly remember from this game is when it's like, oh look, there's all those bad guys in the thing. You got to do the bad thing, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. Can I do it to something else? And they're like, no, you have to do this. I'm like, I don't want to do this. Can I do something else? And they're like, no, you have to do this. I'm like, okay. And I do it, and it's like, wow, why did you do the bad thing, you bad person? Way to go, idiot. And I'm like, I think games have gotten better about that stuff, but like chastising, like railroading me into a decision and then chastising me for making that decision is, I think it sucks.
Well, as long as you're going to keep playing the game, you always have the decision to keep going. Because there's a question in that game on, Okay, I'm about to get into some because Spec Ops: The Line is actually kind of interesting, and it'll be like way more interesting than 6 Days to Fallujah, which is actually based on a real life event that took place 15 years ago or something like that, and that's a shame. Um, but it's Spec Ops: The Line. There is the biggest question. Again, spoiler alert coming up. If your character's even alive the entire time you're playing the game, he could be in purgatory, and that's like one of my favorite theories coming out of the game. That your character is caught in a repeating time loop of just his personal hell that he has to keep reliving because he fucked up like many times during this mission. Like replay that game with that in mind, and it turns into a whole different experience. What I'm trying to say is, if you guys are looking for a military shooter with something to say, go play Spec Ops: The Line, not Call of Duty Black Ops. That has nothing interesting to say.
I think there are interesting things it does say, but it's not necessarily intending to do them. Well,
Oh, really?
some it does, and some it doesn't. It's just it's kind of accidentally wild. And it's like the backstory of one of the good guys is like, oh, this guy threw communists out of helicopters, and now you can play as him, and you're just like, oh.
Do
Cool.
you get to throw communists out of helicopters?
No, not in Black Ops, but it's just like
what are we even doing here? Like,
you can go find like this the Warzone character bios. Those are we should do a special segment on our next Wars Heck because there are some real wild ones just kind of sitting there, and yeah, there's some really interesting, fun stuff in those that and by fun I mean.
If you guys don't mind, the next topic I have here for us is our favorite bugbear. It's streaming gaming. In this case, it's Stadia. So last time we talked at this podcast, Stadia did a no. No, that was a couple months ago actually. Where what's that? What's the director? Anyways, he says something really dumb. I forget what it was. Became a Twitter firestorm.
The guy who messes up every video game thing he's been a part of for like the past 10 years, right?
yeah.
No. It was actually like one of the directors in Canada who said that he absolutely would copyright anybody using Stadia footage or video game footage, and that people should, content makers should pay companies for the privilege of streaming their game on like Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Gaming, anything like that. So, being that he was a director of Stadia, that blew up, and that was one of the last bad things that happened to Stadia. That was this past August. So, 3 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, Stadia decided to close down both of its first-party studios without even releasing a game. Need I remind everyone, Stadia started going for sale in November of 2019. Josh, I believe as the resident person that plays Stadia games, because I refuse at this point. I want to know your take on the future of Stadia, knowing that not only did they cancel all of their first-party studios, but also that the lead director that helped create those studios, whose name I forget, the woman that helped create, I think it was the Assassin's Creed series. Her name is escaping me. I want to say it's like Jade Raymond. That she had left recently.
Looks bad, Chet. No, yeah. It is one of those things that I feel like most people saw coming a mile away. Like, it is one of those, and we kind of talked about this in our unscripted gaming chat as we kind of got ready for this show. It's Google is both the worst and best company to do something like Stadia. They're the best because they have some of the biggest data centers. They have some of the best distribution. They have the capacity and the money to throw at a project like this. Mm-hmm. But also a company like Google, is just so notorious on killing things that aren't seeing results quick enough. Even if they're seeing results and they're not seeing results to the extent that Google expects, they'll axe it with no regard for anything. RIP Google Reader, how many people still talk about that on the internet today?
I still talk about Waze. That was an idea. It just needed more time. I'm convinced Waze could have gone somewhere.
It's just
not Waze, Wave. I'm sorry.
Wave,
Waze
yes,
still exists.
Yes. Making a game studio, making a product like that is something that takes a lot of time and is not something you're going to see a return on investment of immediately. And I'm sure that whatever they were working on probably got, they probably had to start over. They probably didn't have a clear vision on what was happening. Who knows what that looked like internally. But when you're not willing to sit and say, I am committing to this project for the next 3 to 5 years minimum, which is something that Google's just not going to do. It's one of those things that just seems to be unfortunately inevitable. And as interesting as the Stadia concept is, and how I do truly believe that is the future of gaming at some point, right now with a company like Google, it's so unwilling to put that in kind of investment in to making the killer app that makes people think, oh, I'm going to specifically buy this, not getting the kind of exclusives that are going to draw people into your platform, and not understanding how to market it past the quote-unquote early adopter crowd to the crowd that something like Stadia is actually going to be attractive to. It does not bode well. And the only worry that I have is that something like, Google closing Stadia's studio and then eventually, sunsetting the service, is what kind of pause does that put on the advancement of further advancing streaming game services? I know, Xbox has their system that they've, been pushing full force and putting into the Xbox Ultimate Pass situation, but without a Google into that space, you're also going to have a hard time to really advance that kind of technology. So
yeah,
I'm not surprised. I'm sure this is not a good sign for Stadia as a whole, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that, like, when Stadia first came out, everyone was like, "Oh, they're just gonna Google it again. They're gonna do the Google thing, and this will last like 2 years, and then they'll drop it for good."
And they're like,
And
no, it's fine.
And Google was like, "No, we won't do that," and then they did it, which is just
like, they released a new Chromecast over the holiday season. That the new Chromecast that had remotes, and it did not have Stadia support out of the box.
That's insane. Like,
and they're like, "Oh, well,
what?
we're gonna
Like,
put it in later." But and again,
I do want to.
You have to read Mice and Men, Josh.
Again, I did not buy any of the games I played on Stadia. I just did a temporary membership. I played a couple of the free games, and like I said, it was a perfectly passable experience. I am no hardcore MLG gamer as much as that my Rocket League car claims to be, but I was like, these are perfectly playable games, and for a certain audience, I could definitely see the appeal. Just when you have to also then buy a special controller, or you have to have the right Chromecast and not the Chromecast that you already have, that's when the math just doesn't start to work out for that more casual person, or the person who is right now waiting in GPU purgatory because there's nothing, there's no silicon available. Like, right now should be a perfect time for Stadia to be like, hey, play your games on Stadia because you can't get a 3090 and upgrade your rig right now. Play everything in 4K ultra settings right now this second.
Yeah, because that's like that's even a good pitch to that's like the pitch to the hardcore people, honestly, like right now, because like the person who's trying to get a 3090 but can't probably has the internet that makes Stadia good.
Yep.
Like that makes too much sense.
Like
Josh.
think about cynical me thinking about this. Okay,
man.
Stadia, perfect product, has everything you wanted. Okay, so I'm trying to get a 5950X and a 3090, and I know I'm not going to be able to get it for like a year, but I have a 10900 and I have a 2070 Super, and they're both trading on the secondhand market for double their cost. I sell those, turn a profit, keep that money in my back pocket until the computer I want comes available, and then I just stream my games at high fidelity for a few months while I wait. Like, talk about a really good stopgap product and something you could then continue to keep. It just, I don't know.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
wild that that they've whiffed on that completely. Like,
if I may, they did like do a huge marketing push to say like, hey, we're noticing a lot of you are having cyberpunk issues with your hardware. You know what runs perfectly on Stadia? Cyberpunk 2077, which apparently I didn't play it, but apparently it does. So they did push there, but also that thing that you're talking about, Josh, about streaming games on Stadia, is that there's still the contention that people have, and I still say rightfully so on. So am I gonna keep my games
Yep.
if you guys go belly up? And Google never truly answered that question. Like,
because
they always dodge it.
I'm imagining that Google doesn't have the final say in that. I
That's
would
fair.
I would bet dollars to donuts that when the inevitable folding of Google Stadia does happen, and it's coming like a goddamn freight train, I'm going to be able to like claim a key for my game on my platform of choice is going to be up to the individual publishers.
Yeah.
Or they may say, hey, yeah, if you want to keep playing this, you're gonna play it on the Epic Game Store, not on Steam. Sorry, bud. Sorry about ya. Like, I'm willing to bet that kind of language is in their contracts on that, that distribution.
So I'm sure that's what makes people like gun shy about like.
Oh,
saying,
absolutely. That is fair.
$50 to $70.
Because at least with Xbox Play Anywhere, you are just subscribing to something. You do not own that game.
Yeah.
And, Google Stadia is also a very perfect microcosm of the uncertainty of our digital libraries, because we actually don't own anything that we have. So this is just the most likely to make us all confront that sooner rather than later.
Josh, this is why I buy physical media. This is
your physical media doesn't mean shit anyway.
How not?
Your Blu-ray player has an internet connection for a reason, Ray.
Okay, so that's why if I want to play games,
Disney will find your copy of Star Wars Blu-ray that doesn't have the dumb Jabba the Hutt scene in A New Hope, and they will put it in. They will patch your Blu-ray.
They patch it in.
That, or 2 weeks later, a D-man, as they call them.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Shows up to your house with a briefcase and says, "You must take this, or I will drive you to your arbitration case right now."
Slightly related topic. I also found this very funny. I don't know if anybody saw any of the BlizzCon streams, but on Twitch, Metallica was playing their own song, and Twitch DMCA'd it and cut the song out and overlaid it with some like do songs, which I thought was absolutely hilarious.
That is so hilarious. That's so good, man.
And if that's not a perfect like just encapsulation of what the hell is wrong with DMCA and like, oh, we can't listen to music on streams, like. There it is right there. There's no, when you treat everything with a hammer, like there's no nuance for anything.
That's hilarious.
I want to talk about like that specific topic right there, copyright music and streaming. So thanks to the recommendation of mutual friend of the show, Matt and Mike, I played and beat the game Control, and I'm low-key angry at the both of them, because I love reading SPC, like creepypastas.
Not that angry, okay.
Or YouTube videos, watching like lore-based YouTube videos on them. I'm like, man, this is some good stuff. This is good writing. If someone had told me there was a whole ass video game based on SCP, I would have been all over that. Would have pre-ordered that nonsense. Would have followed it. No, I'm just playing it 2 years later like a chump. Anyways, I do play it. And there's a whole button in the menus, the audio settings I was adjusting, where it's like, disable copyrighted music. I'm like, okay, I haven't encountered any copyrighted music. There's a scene near the end of the game where they play some copyrighted music, and it's dynamite. It is great. It is an excellent piece, and it goes really well with the song. I mean, with the level, but I am curious what they would have played instead. But also, that speaks to the issues that we have where there are whole buttons now for accessibility issues where they're like, if there is copyrighted music in this video game, click this button and we won't play it so you could stream this video game. That shouldn't be an issue if you own the rights to that video game, because the video game publisher has already paid for the rights to that song. So you getting dinged by playing that song in that game is just
Like,
it's overlapping the bullshit.
Yeah, like that should very easily fall into like fair use or transformative performance on the topic, but also like
Yeah.
in this world where everybody has a subscription to some sort of streaming music service, like what person out there is going to, you know, let's just say PewDiePie's channel to hope that he plays some sort of copyrighted piece of music that they can then record and rip and listen to for free, without any of the other content that's happening on that stream. Like, it is such a nobody is going to a streamer's channel to listen to a particular artist or listen to a particular song. It is literally just publishers and record labels wanting to try and figure out how to cash in on some of that sweet streaming revenue.
I do want to say, and I just want to play devil's advocate for half a second, probably like half a minute. There are some people out there that have taken the piss. One of my favorite streamer DMCA violations that you can't help but laugh at was that guy that streamed a UFC fight, but he had a PS4 controller in his hand, so he was acting like he was playing an actual UFC video game published by EA, and that's what he titled the stream as. But it was actually just the fight on pay-per-view that he was streaming to his peeps. And I get it. I get it, publishers. There are people out there taking the piss. But that was one guy.
Okay.
It's never happened again.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Brief sidebar.
Maybe.
Okay. I have a brief sidebar about a couple of things. I'll make this one here because it's most relevant. I think for a number of laws and regulations in this country, there should be what's a thing that you call a hijinks workaround. So like, yes, this is illegal, but also he faked playing a video game so he could stream it. Like, if you do enough like Looney Tunes ass shit on,
if there was enough ridiculous effort,
if you kind of get like, damn it, all right, if you can get that reaction out of the regulator, you should be allowed to do it. It's like the people who dressed up as grannies to like get the COVID shot. Like, it's like you're just like, oh damn it, like, fine, okay. Like, if you managed to get the first one, if your granny costume worked for the first one, that's fine. Like, if you manage to run across a canyon because you don't look down and see that you're not on the road, you deserve to cross the canyon. I just think that's how a couple things should work.
It's the chortle challenge. Did you make the regulator chortle? Then they can't challenge your claim.
Exactly.
Thank you. I used to have that policy when I was a forum moderator for a game company I worked for. It was like, if it's not racist, xenophobic, transphobic, what have you, but you made me laugh. Like, it's offensive, but I like I turned the other eye. I was like, yeah, I'm having a good day today.
I have a kind and merciful God. Like Xerxes.
You shall pass.
Yeah.
And sorry to jump back to topics, but I going back to like Stadia and cloud stuff in general, I think I've kind of had my pie in the sky idea about this before, but I think the other part of cloud gaming that I think, like what Josh said, I think it will happen at some point in the future and become more ubiquitous. And I think that cloud gaming like really needs, I think it needs some kind of killer app that makes use of that technology and cloud gaming that renders it a very different experience than traditional gaming. I don't know what that looks like, but if I just think that there is something. I just feel like there's some untapped potential there with like if all of these, if everybody's streaming out of like all of these Stadia servers, like is there something we can do with that beyond just streaming? I don't know, like Destiny, like they're all in a Destiny 2 strike or something. Like, is that like you know what I mean? Something more than just like streaming a Xbox game, like building
like a battle royale game that requires you to stream because XYZ reason.
Like just exactly. There's something that like
or like
makes use of that technology that cannot be replicated on like a PlayStation 5.
Truly destructible and auto-generated on the fly environment. Like, you got your Battlefield Bad Company, Battlefield 2, destructibility, but like everything is interactable and changeable in some fashion because you're not relying on somebody with a potato to do the rendering at the same time you with your double water-cooled Titans are, because it's all happening in the rack and it's all happening together. So all that computation is happening at the same place. So you can do all sorts of wild and intensive instancing because you're just putting in some data into it, not having to actually compute stuff.
I feel like that is the kind of thing that cloud gaming needs to really like get a foothold and appeal, because it's just offer something that that the technology because of it cannot be replicated elsewhere. And I guess things. I don't know what that looks like, but that's just my shoot from the hip. Cloud,
massive action game
idea.
Mag 2. We've
we've multiplied the number of people in the server by 10.
What was it?
128 people or 256?
128 on 128.
Yeah.
I played Mag. I was there. That was not a game. That was madness. That was just nonsense. You're just firing it through a stream of people. It was great. It was wonderful. It was everything I needed it to be. I was like, these madmen actually did it. Look at this. I think Josh did play it on my PS3 at one point. It's not a game that like lasted very long because it requires 256 people with PS3s in 2009 online at the same time.
And everybody,
just saying that just makes me go, oh.
And it's not just like a free for all. It's like, okay, all of these 128 people per side are broken up into little squads, and those little squads have little objectives that they're doing that kind of fit into the whole overarching Magpie. So, Magpie. But
I like that. That's nice.
I just, anyway, Ray, continue.
There were two things I wanted to say about like, okay, one of the biggest like things that are hurting Stadia is Phil Harrison. Here are two things that Phil Harrison has done for Stadia in just a bad way. And I don't want to shit talk a bunch of gaming peers, but my goodness, man. So last year, this is also hurting Stadia.
People who don't watch our video feed on YouTube probably should, because sometimes the facial features we make while others talk are pretty good.
Peak. Remember last year when people brought up the question of like, hey, no, it was like, actually it was in like early 2019. People brought up the Phil Harrison, some interviewer, I forget what article. Hey, data caps are a thing. They're here to stay. Most people in the United States, especially the people that you're advertising this to, have data caps. How is Stadia going to address the data cap situation when downloading a 4K game takes up like 30 gigs or something ridiculous? Actually, more than that. What was it? Like, imagine playing Final Fantasy VII Remake on Stadia. That is a 90 gig game, not in 4K. What is the 4K version of that streaming? Goodness gracious. And he said, well, and I'm not directly quoting, I'm paraphrasing, ISPs are really smart companies. They're going to do the right thing and do what they can to help satisfy their customers. When they see that the
The fuck
customers are
they
using
are.
more data, they'll just increase the data cap. And
They're
it's like,
smart, all right. Yeah, I'll give you that.
I think he's been too in the weeds and too rich to realize that problems like data caps exist and are a real thing for people. Like, can you imagine in the past year with the COVID-19 situation, all three of us are working from home. We're using way more data than we normally do because that's just the thing. Imagine trying to also game at all times while using all that. You're hitting your cap at week one, like right at the week one of your.
I mean,
billing
if
cycle.
you play Call of Duty for 10 minutes, you're done for the month.
Honestly, probably good. You just have one war zone, 149th, 0 kills,
No,
dead in gulag.
Yep.
you download Warzone.
I'll see you
Warzone
next month.
updates. You get a match and you're done. You're cut off. You can't even go to work.
If you play Warzone on Stadia, at least you don't have to wait for shaders to install.
You're right. They're not constantly going on.
Mike's listening.
Go on. I would like to know more.
I refuse to play a game like Call of Duty Warzone that has any latency lag that is not implicated on myself. Like,
I mean, you play Smash Bros a lot, so you know.
I do play Smash Bros a lot. You got me. You got me good. I know Josh
keep you
doesn't know
honest,
this.
Ray, for the people.
I have to bring this up to Josh. Smash Brothers Ultimate, no matter how good your internet connection is, has by design online 12 frames of input lag. That is what is that? 1/8 of a second. That 1/8 of a second means a lot.
You
to
feel
a
it
lot of
sometimes real
characters.
bad. It hurts.
Yeah. There are certain characters where it's like, well, your jab that comes out at frame 1, it's just coming out at frame 12, motherfucker. And there's
Not
nothing
good.
you can do about that.
That's
just
I mean, okay, I'm no elite fighting game master, but that sounds bad.
it makes Little Mac the worst. He's already the worst character. It just makes him below garbage now. Picking Little Mac online and you're just either you're really that confident or you're just giving up the ghost.
Yeah. I think as we've said before, Lil Mac is the worst character, but also that means you should be fucking terrified if you see someone playing Lil Mac.
I'm legit
Because
afraid.
they know too. And that should scare you.
If you get on Elite Smash and your next opponent is a Little Mac player, give him the
Unplug that
W.
router ASAP.
Just go ahead, give him the W. Don't even bother. It's gonna be humiliating.
I just thought of another thing with the hijinks exception. Like,
Okay.
if 3 kids in a trench coat successfully sneak into an R-rated movie, just let them watch the movie.
Yeah,
They earned it.
They absolutely. If they walk up to the ticket counter, they wobble their way there.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Excuse me, one for Alien versus Predator, please." Let them in. Just let them watch
like,
the stupid movie.
You know, and there's going to be a sliding degree. Like, you know, the more heinous the crime or infraction, you know, the hijinks need to be pretty dang good to justify it. Like,
yeah, you probably can't commit murder unless it's really good hijinks.
Like
it's gotta be
murder
pretty up there.
is bad, but if
Like-
you know, trick a bad like a shitty billionaire into driving their Tesla truck into a canyon wall that you painted a tunnel on, I mean, you might be able to swing a jury on that. I don't know.
Well, would that just like catastrophically explode if someone actually did that? Now I'm like giving that thought. All right, I'm gonna stop. Okay, one last thing Phil Harrison did.
Parody. That's a joke. Parody.
Phil Harrison. So we opened this up by saying like 2 of their first-party studios were closed. The gaming studios, one in LA, one in Canada somewhere. I forget where. I'm not a journalist, clearly. A week before they closed down those studios, Phil Harrison was actually doing a Zoom conference call saying that everyone in the studio is doing great. They have a long tail future. They can't wait to introduce the games. Here's their marketing plan going forward. Basically, everyone's under the assumption everything's going great. And they find out via social media that they've been laid off. So Phil Harrison has now admitted to Polygon that, and to his investors and to his employees, that, yeah, I lied. That was a regrettable thing I said. That's scum. That is so scummy.
Me
that.
Phil of Harrison. Oopsie doopsie. I made a fucky wucky. I saw bro.
I accidentally complicated your lives and let you let you think
Sorry,
you had
but come on,
job
dude.
security. Now, to credit to Google, I guess they said that they were going to fold them into the Google ecosystem and put them on other projects, but there are some people where that's not an option. Like, most of Google is located like in the Bay Area and the East Coast, a little bit in Austin, I do believe. Some people like uprooted their entire lives to just go move and start working on one Stadia game for what was it, 13 months? Good lord.
Yeah.
Uh,
Can you
That's
just
nothing.
imagine
That's
Phil
crazy
Harrison
much.
on Tuesday going around slapping everybody on the back? See you tomorrow, buddy.
Yeah, can you imagine that bullshit?
Yeah. Also, like, Google is not necessarily a company I want to be folded into something else, because one day you're working on like the Stadia original, I don't know, Globe War or whatever.
Yeah.
Was the name of some awful game they're making. That not really, but
Mike, become
that's
the
probably what it was called. And then the next day it's like, oh look, now you're at the Google drone factory teaching the killbots how to survive in gladiatorial combat. That is your new job, monkey. Get in there.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I never actually considered that, Mike. Imagine this, fam. You're a game designer. Your job is writing documentation and overseeing the project of the actual vision of a game. That's your job as game designer. Google says the one thing that you were good at, we've shut down 2 whole studios worth. What do you do then?
Well, obviously you redesigned the no internet connection idle game.
Yeah, you add microtransactions. You make new skins for the dinosaur.
There you go.
Oh my god.
That, or you call Fortnite and be like, Mr. Fortnite, do you want to be the new offline dinosaur guy?
I have a
Please,
sweet
God, help
gig for you.
Help me.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, that's cool of them to say, but is that possible for them to actually do? Like, there are some extremely specialized jobs in the gaming industry. I guess some of them are just gonna have to like go somewhere else. That's the obvious answer right there. I don't know. It's still kind of. I feel that was supremely.
Google is so wide and varied. They have coders, they have graphic designers, they have community managers, they have project managers. Like they have verticals in every place where they could find somebody. It's just do those people want to do that job, or do they want to make a video game? Like,
yeah,
being a graphic designer trying to produce the next Google Home Hub Max skin is very different than trying to design a brand new character for the next hot
World
video
War,
game.
They're exciting IP, I'm sure.
yeah.
I guess.
But if we're done with that, I have some news in Ray's favorite segment. Time for Josh's. Time for Josh's. Time for Josh. Time for Josh. Time for Josh's. Josh's Tech Minute. Do, 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 do. Oh my goodness, it is good to be back for Josh's Tech Minute, Ray. God, I love the fact that you still have to cut that in to the audio every single time. There is a lot happening in the hardware space. I'm sure many of you are aware. There's a global chip shortage going on right now. Yes, Mike.
I want to buy a graphics card. Does Amazon have them?
Okay.
Two-day shipping?
Okay. Question.
Or 5-day shipping?
Let me question you this: are you okay paying double MSRP?
No.
Then no, there are no graphics cards for you.
Is there a reason why?
there are multiple reasons why. First off, there is a global semiconductor shortage, just period. It is so bad to the point where there are not enough chips to go around, where it has disrupted American auto manufacturing. Like, they have had to there have been
Number
several
one,
auto
baby.
manufacturers who have either cut production or completely ceased production for a matter of days to weeks because they do not have enough parts to put in cars. Nvidia also announced the fact that they are going to re-release in small numbers, I believe, the 1050 Ti and the 2060 regular or super edition, because that
Whoa.
Ampere architecture and some of those older are, they're easy to fab because there just isn't enough fab space. The Biden administration has actually responded to a letter from the chip manufacturer consortium, who have basically been talking to the U.S. government saying, hey, we want to expand production in the United States. I believe TSMC or somebody is building a fab in Arizona currently, but they're talking about we need more production space for everybody. We're talking Intel, AMD, Nvidia, the ARM partners, like everybody's saying, like, we need more production here in the United States. And the U.S. has they've been taking the angle, and the U.S. as well, as this is a national defense issue because they don't have enough chips to go into things that keep American manufacturing moving. If auto production has to slow down, if you don't have enough chips to put in your bombs to blow up brown people, then real people suffer. Yes, Ray.
I have a question. Okay. Nothing of what you said in the past 30 seconds sounded bad. All of that sounded like a net positive in my book.
No, don't get me wrong. I do believe that these fabs opening up in the United States would be a good thing. One, more fab space is just very important. They're already talking about the fact that Apple has bought up, I want to say, 80% of TSMC's 5 nanometer process for the next couple of years, even though AMD is looking to start building on the 5 nanometer. ARM is looking at some of their 5 nanometer processes to build their chips. So, there's just not enough fab space to go around to meet demand. But on top of that just this last weekend, Nvidia announced that at the same time that they're releasing the 3060, which is supposed to retail for $329, but is already being sold for $1,000 on the secondhand market, because of the current mining craze that is partially playing into the shortages, that they are going to artificially lock the hashing rate on the 3060 graphics card through some sort of weird BIOS trickery, so that it can only do half of the hashing computations, because, wouldn't you know it, they're going to release special mining cards on poorly binned 3060 dies to sell to miners that will then, obviously attract them to buy that instead of the gaming card. So there are more gamers getting graphics cards and not the miners out there.
That's wild.
It's weird.
So it's not the first time they've done it. But the last time they did it, Nvidia did not necessarily, make a page on their actual website about all these, mining specific graphics cards. It was just silently, some of the board partners released cards that didn't have video outputs that were specifically for mining. They were cheap. They didn't have great cooling. They just were there. But now, this has a whole page on the Nvidia website about their CMP cards that are, binned not as well. They don't have the same computational power. The 3060 is not going to be able to hash as much because of this artificial limit they're putting on. So miners will go and buy these poorly binned cards because they're specific for mining, which is really bad logic if you think about it.
Why can't they just buy the gaming cards?
Well, you would think that the miner would rather buy the gaming card because A, the gaming card is more efficient, and B, for the miner when the market does bust or they want to get out of it, what has a better resale value for the miner? A card that nobody wants because it doesn't have a video output and doesn't perform as well or efficiently, or the card that they can sell to somebody for half of MSRP because they can sell them in bulk to reclaim some of the investment that they had in that hardware.
So it doesn't make sense to me, like setting off a card to design for mining, because you could just not buy that card.
Well, and also the logic of, okay, we're going to take these poorly binned chips from our production process so we're not wasting anything, and we're going to put them specifically in these cards. Great in theory at first, but as production on a new process continues on in time, yields get better. They get better at making those chips, so you have fewer and fewer of the, the actual pieces on that wafer that are bad and don't pass spec. Because eventually you get to the point where you're taking high binning chips and just artificially clocking them down because you're so good at making them you cannot match that skew anymore. So yes, Nvidia's right. Oh, we're not going to take from the gaming supply of all the stuff we're making. We're just going to make sure that these miners aren't taking from the gaming supply for you. Doesn't really hold out because in 6 months the process is going to be maturing, so they're going to have to take some of the good stuff and put it in the mining card because they're not making the bad stuff anymore. And also, the miners aren't going to want that bad card anyway because it's not as efficient and they can't resell it.
That's wild.
This is exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, it's an idea that the moment you think about it for 30 seconds falls apart.
Yeah.
I have a brief sidebar. I just think it's kind of hilarious. It's not haha funny, but like, fuck funny. But just recently, Bitcoin has collectively uses more electricity than Argentina, putting it in the top 30 of energy users worldwide if it was a country.
Oh, also,
Probably fine.
They also use more money. They also use more electricity than like Denmark. Like several actual like sovereign nations.
Yeah, I think they're going to pass, like, it looks like based on this article from the BBC, Bitcoin will, is very close to passing Norway and Ukraine.
The crazy thing about that is at this point, it's not half of that energy isn't even being used for mining. It's just for the verification of the transactions, because math still has to happen to verify in the blockchain that this transaction and this coin is acceptable and is what it says, and it hasn't duplicated in any way. Like, because it is so hard to actually mine Bitcoin, most of the energy used is still just confirming the Bitcoin transactions and not actually mining the coin as much anymore. So yes, there's a global.
Bitcoin is baffling to me. Like, it's hilarious. It, again, not in haha funny, but fuck funny.
Yes, I was trying to explain it to my wife the other day because she was also like like, oh my god, I cannot believe Congress is like looking into the GameStop, buffoonery that happened. And then I kind of explained how Bitcoin and Ethereum and all this stuff works, and she's like, wait a minute, how is that any different than like the GameStop stuff that happened? And I was like, it's not.
It's like, wife, what you do is that you leave your car on. You ask your car to solve Sudokus, and then you leave your car on. And then if everybody does that, someone's car will solve the Sudoku. And then that turns into the value for doing
and
stuff.
She's like, wait, who decides that it's $50,000? And I'm like, the people.
The market.
People? The ones who the people with the money.
Like, uh-oh. Someone's learning that money's fake. Oh no. Uh-oh.
Can I tell that Dogecoin story, Mike, on the podcast?
Sure.
where me and you dove into Dogecoin, and then I think Mike cashed out after like he got $25, and he's like, "Wait a minute, what's Dogecoin actually worth?" And we both talked about how like you can't actually buy anything physical with a Dogecoin. And he's like, "Oh no, money is really fake."
It's like, sometimes sometimes it's just like, the fact that a lot of the things that we take for granted are wholly artificial constructs. It's
Yeah.
like, you kind of know when you press up against a wall, like it's gonna have some give. But there's a difference between give and fucking paper mache that explodes the second you touch it. And it's just very funny.
We never had a podcast, or we never briefly talked about. We're running out of time, but yeah, I think there's a whole podcast we could have done about the whole GameStop AMC situation, but maybe for another time.
Yeah,
Time
Or
ahead, baby.
we'll have to save that for another time because there was so much news. We're not even going to be really able to talk about the games we've been playing because we'll have to save that for another day because we are already at an hour. But yeah, global chip shortage. It is wild out there. You cannot buy a card or a processor to save your life. I do believe there is some Intel stock in place that you can get. But if you want a Ryzen chip, if you want an Nvidia card, if you want a Radeon graphics card, there's nothing for you.
And these kids, they're too busy worried about silicon chips instead of tortilla chips.
Not gonna lie, I want tortilla chips now.
Is that anything, guys?
I mean,
so
I'm gonna see if Murray will let me on his late night show.
I don't know. If you want to continue to see bad segues like that, do you know where you can find them?
Harsh and fair.
Where, sir?
Josh?
UnscriptedGaming.com, where you can find links to all of our audio and video podcasts. You can get us on our socials at Unscripted Game Podcast on Facebook, at Unscript_gaming on Twitter. Follow us on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/unscripted-gaming. We are on YouTube as Unscripted Gaming. Get us in any of the podcatchers. Yes, Michael.
I'd just like to make a special announcement. As some of you may be aware, one Zack Snyder tricked HBO into letting him make a fucking 4-hour version of Justice League. And once again, I as Virgil and Ray as Dante we are descending into the hell of bad things, and so therefore you can expect a Creed got robbed from at least the two of us of the Zack Snyder Justice League cut.
I have access to HBO Max. I don't know if I have access to 4 hours, but I'm gonna do my best to be on that Creed got robbed.
There's
I'm gonna have to I have to say hey, this entire Sunday doesn't exist. It's dedicated to just watching this dumbass movie.
Okay, real quick before we sign out. Okay, if I'm gonna participate in this Creed got robbed, because I'm a virgin here. Do I need the context of watching any of the Superman or the original Justice League, or should I go in completely raw, having seen none of the DC universe and just watch the Snyder cut?
I think that will be valuable because having going raw into Zack Snyder's Justice League is fucking hilarious.
Okay, I'm committing right now.
Keep it that way.
I won't watch Wonder Woman. I won't watch Batman or Superman, whatever the fuck. I won't watch anything. I will go into Zack Snyder's cut raw and uncut.
Getting all of the baffling, Ben Affleck as Batman, all of that stuff compressed into one 4-hour.
No, it's gonna be bad because if it's anything like the original Justice League, then I feel, you know what? Not gonna say another word.
Yep.
Gonna let this one be a surprise.
Keep my ears clean, but you know where you can see me once I've been filthed up, right here on unscriptedgaming.com. Make sure you get subscribed to everything so you don't miss it. Thank you for listening to Unscripted Gaming. My name is Josh.
My name is Mike.
And that's Ray. Peace.
Mm.